Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Jamie.
It's just the two of us.
I know, you're stuck with just the two of us.
Yeah, well.
We'll try to make it fun.
Kelly and Vashita are off doing different things in different areas, and so it's just Gabe and Jamie this week. So happy FBI raid day, Jamie.
Woohoo! Yeah, the Ohio House is a complete and total mess. So
Yes.
Actually, the Ohio House Republican Caucus. Let's really narrow this down.
It's just that.
Just them.
I would say half, but it's really like 2/3.
Yeah, it is 2/3. Unfortunately, it's 2/3. But yeah, so not only that, but like they also can't pick a new speaker. So the FBI is raiding the office of the previous speaker, and they're in such turmoil and such a mess that they can't even get 50 votes to elect a new one. So they canceled session last week. I think we talked about that last week. Yes. They canceled session again this week. They canceled it yesterday because they thought that they didn't exactly have the ability to schedule a new session without a speaker. The law on that was a little weird.
Right. So they're not canceling session. They're canceling specifically sessions wherein they would vote for the new Ohio Speaker of the House.
I mean, they're canceling sessions, so they can't do anything. But yes, but specifically because they can't.
Yeah.
Yes,
they don't know who they're going to pick,
and they can't do any other business of the House until they pick a new speaker, and therefore they can't have session until they have a speaker.
Right. So the Ohio General Assembly is just in complete disarray right now because there is no Speaker of the House. And the old Speaker of the House, just today, the FBI knocked down his door and storage locker.
Yes, which is where all of his office stuff supposedly went. That was the storage locker was the boxes that he loaded out of his official state office when he left, when he resigned. So
it's really remarkable. We've jumped right to the second thing on our agenda today, but the state government here in Ohio is really at an odd point of multiple layers of corruption and resignations. We're seeing this. The origin of this mess is payday lending, and these go cash your check for an enormous amount of fees. These storefronts have been trying to lobby state government, and the Speaker of the House, Cliff Rosenberger, accepted
multiple trips and gifts and all kinds of crap. Yes.
Yeah, and some moolah, and should not have, from these lenders who cheat Ohioans every single day just by their own existence. And so he had to resign knowing that this was coming, and now it's here.
Yes. And what's really ironic is that one of the 15 bills that they are not voting on that were on the schedule last week but have just been sitting there because they can't decide on a speaker is actually a bill about payday lending.
Right. That they've all been lobbied on.
Yes.
And there's probably, I think it's safe to say that a good part of the who are we going to get to be the speaker is who might be interested in the job or powerful enough, but might still have some of this taint from payday lending on them.
Well, yeah, because I mean,
the person can't step up.
Yeah, because the person that they're looking at, Ryan Smith, is former Speaker Rosenberger's roomie in their Columbus apartment. So they roomed together in an apartment in Columbus when they were in Columbus, and was his hand-picked successor. So I mean, they were very, very close. So who knows what Ryan Smith's hands are tied to in all of this as well, which is some of the reason why there is this group of members who are refusing to vote for him right now, because he's in the lead. I think he's got 47 votes or something like that. So he only needs a couple more because they won't vote until they have 50 Republicans together to vote for him.
Right.
So he's only a couple short.
To me, that's not surprising because, you obviously know this, so I'm not telling you anything, but for people who are new to the State House, the first thing you see when you look at the structure of elected officials is the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. They're standing up there in the big chair holding the big gavel.
Yep.
They're obviously the ones that are calling the shots in terms of how each chamber works. But the most important stuff that the General Assembly does is passing the state budget.
Yes.
And so we know that after the heads of each chamber, the most important members in there are the two finance committee chairmen.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Republicans control everything right now, they're both Republicans.
Yes.
So there's one state senator in Ohio who's the chair of that Senate Finance Committee. And in the House, it's the exact same thing. The chairman of the House Finance Committee. Those two guys control what goes into and what comes out of a $60 billion budget.
Yeah, something like that.
Every 2 years that runs the state of Ohio. It's an incredibly important position. And Ryan Smith, for at least the last cycle, I think the last two cycles, budget cycles. So for 4 years now, he's been the guy in the Ohio House to decide what goes in when they get their bite at that apple to, put $60 billion into, various little pots for the state of Ohio to run with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's going to be getting all of the attention from lobbyists.
Oh yeah.
And if the corruption stems from lobbying, you got to assume that there's dirt on this guy. And he's the one who potentially could be the next Speaker of the House.
Yeah. What I also can't understand is why they just don't. I mean, I guess they really want controversy on some level, because they're going to have another big, huge fight, because they're already set up to have a big, huge fight between Ryan Smith and Larry Householder in January, because Householder needs a bunch of new members to get in that he's supporting so that he would have the votes. So we already know there's going to be another big, huge fight about who's going to be Speaker in January. So here we are, 6 months before that, having another big, huge fight about who's going to be Speaker of the House. Like, get your crap together, guys.
Right. It's a giant mess.
Yeah. And I mean, the other part is they've been in charge for how long now? Shouldn't they understand how this works and figure this out? Like, what is your problem?
Right.
But I think it really just goes to what we're seeing at the federal level, too, is you get a whole bunch of people who are elected saying, we don't need government. Government's stupid. I'm going to drain the swamp. We don't need this. We don't need that. And
right.
Elected then to run the government that they say we don't need. And then everybody's shocked and surprised when government doesn't work.
Right.
Like, hello.
Right. You don't want a bus driver who hates buses.
Yes.
Because he's probably going to wreck it.
Exactly. So why are we doing all of this ridiculousness? It just really goes to show that everybody needs to get out and vote for a Democrat so that these people don't have the unilateral crazy power that they have right now.
Right. All of this corruption comes from the same party who does want to continue to promote and has been promoting abortion restrictions, restrictions on reproductive health care providers. That has been, we see it as a real legitimate issue because where you've talked to the women who are trying to go to the doctor, we know that they're seeking access to health care. For many of these Republicans, promoting anti-choice, anti-abortion restrictions is just a way to, continue getting them votes from Christian conservative voters, continue getting them that endorsement that they can put on their website from all the different groups that signal, hey, I hate abortion rights.
Yeah. It's just another box to check. It really is. I mean, what you saw in all the Republican primary ads that thankfully are gone off of my television at this time was
they'll come back.
The NRA loves me. Ohio Right to Life endorsed me. And I'm going to drain the swamp. I mean, those were like the 3 boxes you had to check in order to be a Republican candidate.
Right.
In the primary. So yeah, it's just another box to check. They don't actually care. It's a political football that they like to toss around.
Right. So the FBI is checking out the former Speaker of the House. The current members are trying to pick the next Speaker of the House. That's one big scandal. That's all on payday lending. Something else we didn't put down here, but I just want to throw in is there's a massive scandal about ECOT right now, which I think is kind of, it would be hilarious, but it's cost Ohio taxpayers millions and millions and millions, and I think like nearly $1 billion if you
I think
all
it
this
is
stuff. For an online charter school, which to me, the origin of my understanding of this thing was this stupid TV commercial. I'm going to put a video on the show notes of this high school band, New Hollow, riding on their tour bus. Do you remember the New Hollow commercial?
I do remember that one. Now that you said that, I had totally forgotten about that. But yeah, like we can go on tour because we go to school with ECOT.
Right. Yeah, they were skipping class, taking classes online, and riding around on a tour bus.
Classes, air quotes, online.
Yeah, and that was half a decade ago, maybe more. And now we've suddenly learned that the classes were worthless. There was no oversight. The organization, this charter school was committing massive amounts of fraud and overbilling. And Mike DeWine failed as Attorney General to to prosecute them. And John Husted, as then, head, because he was a Speaker of the House back then, he was, making sure that they were able to operate as they wanted and taking big checks from them.
Yeah. Husted actually got the only honorary high school diploma from ECOT ever given. So yeah. It's definitely something that's going to be huge this election cycle. And it really does show just how much this pay to play and turning the blind eye, and it just, Republicans run on, we're the fiscal conservatives, we're going to protect your tax dollars. And then we see them giving $1 billion to a school that didn't educate their students. There was a research study released a couple of years ago now, I feel like, that looked at where ECOT students were in September in a school year on learning. I think it was like math and like reading, kind of fundamental pieces. And then looked at them where they were in June. And so that's a full school year. You should be progressing a full school year ahead.
Right.
ECOT students lost knowledge. They were worse in June than they were in September because they weren't in school and they weren't doing anything. And so, yeah, this was all these, we hear about how so many public schools are struggling and don't have any money, and all of our property taxes are going up because they keep having to come back to increase levies and everything else. One of the main reasons is that charter schools are taking money out of the coffers of these traditional public schools. And one of the biggest ones of those was ECOT.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be an interesting.
More scandal.
And it just really does show. Once you have one party rule that continuously controls the state legislature and for the most part, the governor's mansion, there's no accountability. Right. There's nobody, the wolf's guarding the hen house.
That's exactly the case. We read an article this week in The Nation, which really clearly illustrated yet another problem with state government. TANF money, which we've talked about on the show in the past.
Yes. Temporary assistance for needy families.
Right. This is kind of like food stamps in that, this is cash assistance to go to poor families, but where food stamps has to go to like specific foods. This is money that can, and we're hearing about it specifically because residents are seeking this to literally pay water bills, buy diapers, things that food stamps won't pay for, but families need. They need electricity, they need heat in the winter, they need water.
Clothes, shoes, backpacks, those kind of things, yes.
And so according to this article in The Nation, it says last September, and I didn't hear about this then, so this was news to me. It says a bipartisan coalition of approximately 70 mayors across 13 counties in Appalachian, Ohio had an idea. Because so many people in their counties had been thrown off of TANF, denied funding, they went to the Kasich administration and said, hey, can you please authorize these poor families to get this money? And so what we've learned is that the state of Ohio has $500 million for this purpose.
$500 million. One more time here. $1/2 of $1 billion, not million, $1 billion just sitting around.
There's $500 million that they won't hand out.
Yeah. And they can only hand out, it's the TANF fund. So it's not like it can be then turned around and go someplace else. It's to help poor families who need cash assistance for things.
Right.
And the major issue is because they're kicking people off because they can't meet these ridiculous work requirements. So in order to qualify for these funds, you have to be in school or have a job that reaches the level that they require. And I think it's like 30 hours a week or something like that. It's a ridiculous amount.
Right.
And I think, not 100% sure about this, but I think it exempts people who like have like women who have kids under a certain age. Maybe it's a year or so, but it still doesn't qualify anybody like that has a kid later, and it can't work because they've got a 2-year-old, and if they work, they're actually losing money because they have to put the kid in daycare and those kinds of things. So they're just impossible to actually accomplish these work requirements. So we've kicked all these people off so that we've got $500 million just sitting around.
Right.
And what does Mike DeWine and the Ohio legislature want to do? They want to extend this to Medicaid. It's working so well to kick people off of TANF, so we're going to use it to kick people off Medicaid too. It just really shows that we actually care about poor people, and Kasich, we actually care about poor people, and how he like cries on stage sometimes talking about his duty to protect the poorest among us, or whatever the heck he says constantly, is complete just BS.
Right. Yeah, this group of mayors went to the Kasich administration. They weren't asking for the full $500 million, hardly that. They were looking for $12 million out of a pool of $500 million. $12 million looking for programs to prevent water shutoffs. $8 million for that, and $4 million to purchase essential items like diapers, feminine hygiene products, first aid supplies, and over-the-counter medications.
Mm-hmm. That's 2.4% of the funds.
Right.
2%. That's what they're asking for.
Right. So, Kasich, who's attempted to make himself look moderate, who's, tried to use Medicaid expansion as frankly, a messaging tool to try and illustrate what government should do, is completely failing across the board to help these poor families. And we always look at TANF because TANF funds are where the Kasich administration and Republicans in the legislature pulled away some of those dollars, $1 million, to go to crisis pregnancy centers.
Yes.
And I'd always talked about this, saying, well, it's terrible because that money would otherwise be going to these needy families. And now we're seeing that, here's this massive pot of money over here that should be going to the needy families, and it's just sitting in the bank.
Yeah.
So, it's corruption on one hand and just ineffectiveness.
And complete the word popped in my head and now just left, but just no compassion, no caring. Like, sorry, you can't meet this work requirement, but no, not sorry. Like, we're just going to cut you off. And we would rather have this money sit in a bank account than to help you have safe drinking water in your house.
Right.
Yeah. So they actually did give them, I think the interesting fun fact on numbers too, is that they actually did end up giving them like $500,000, which ironically is the same amount of money per year that they give crisis pregnancy centers.
Right.
So, yeah.
They gave them a drip from the bucket.
Yeah, they gave them
pay
one
for water bills.
Yes, which will meet like 1% of the need.
Right. So we've got literal corruption, and then we've got this ineffectiveness. And so ACLU Ohio has identified one of the many causes of this sort of problem, and that's gerrymandering. Mm-hmm. Every 10 years we redraw the political map, and the party that's in charge gets to pick which voters are going to be in which districts that they run in. And so they're literally deciding what their own constituency looks like.
Yes.
And that helps Republicans get elected time and time again. Even if the broader state is more moderate, the elected officials are chosen by, majority conservatives. And so the entire state has become just solidly Republican in the state house, and really in the congressional delegation.
Oh, yeah.
And so the ACLU of Ohio is challenging this. American Civil Liberties Union filed a federal lawsuit challenging the Ohio U.S. congressional map as unconstitutional partisan gerrymandering. The lawsuit seeks to replace the map with one that accurately reflects the will of voters and complies with the Constitution.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, my district alone is a great example of that. So I'm in the 12th congressional district, and so it encompasses a really large swath of the suburban counties north of Columbus, and then this little tiny wedge straight in the middle of Franklin County.
Right.
So it's got, a little core of Democratic voters washed out with a crap ton of Republicans from these outlining areas. I mean, one of the biggest examples they use for gerrymandering on a national level is the Marcy Captor district.
Yeah.
They even call it the mistake on the lake, the snake on the lake, the snake on the lake.
Snake on the lake.
Cleveland's a mistake on the lake. Everybody in Cleveland's going to hate me for that one.
Yeah, Marcy
Send
Captor's,
hate mail too.
Right. Marcy Captor's district used to be like Toledo.
Yes.
Solidly Toledo. And now it's like a bit of Toledo and a bit of Cleveland and the shoreline in between. And so it looks like a snake.
And it's technically not even contiguous on land, because the only thing that connects the Cleveland area shoreline to the Toledo shoreline is a bridge. So there is actually not contiguous actual land mass.
Right. So if you wanted to drive from one end of Marcy Captor's district to the other, you'd need a ferry.
Yes.
Or
this bridge. So yeah, so I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, Ted Strickland's old congressional district too was 212 miles long and 50 miles wide. It basically went from south of Youngstown all the way along the edge of the Ohio border, all the way through Appalachia.
Right. And when your districts are stretched out like that, it's difficult to be an elected official because, first off, you literally would have all day drives to get back and forth just to talk to your own people. You don't have consolidated communities that you can talk to. You're talking to strings of communities who might be facing different local issues that they don't all, stick together with. And most importantly, this system creates unchecked one-party rule, which leads to so much of the corruption that we've talked about already.
Yeah. And just not competitive districts. I mean, it really is fraudulent to the voters.
Yes.
Because your vote really doesn't matter.
Right.
The members of the legislature have decided that their vote counts more than your vote does.
Right.
It doesn't matter how the people of the district vote. This person's going to win. And it does. It works on both sides. I mean, we've got solidly Democratic districts. Like a Republican couldn't challenge Joyce Beatty or Marcia Fudge. I mean, these districts are just too solidly Democratic. But then they do the same thing and they create the former Pat Tiberi seat, Congressional District 12, where, you're bleeding some of the Dems out to wash out with the Republicans. So yeah, I mean, we don't have any real competitive congressional districts in the state of Ohio.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how me or my neighbors vote. Joyce Beatty is going to get reelected. Yes. It doesn't matter how my mom votes or all of her neighbors, because Warren Davidson over there is going to get reelected. You're right. They're not competitive.
Yeah. And then they're not accountable to you.
Right.
And that you were supposed to be their boss. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yay, ACLU suing somebody else.
Right.
Go get them.
They're not accountable. And then the next thing you know, the FBI is knocking down the Speaker of the House's door.
Speaking of corruption,
you
want to talk about some federal corruption?
Light it up.
Speaking of elected officials under investigation, what other one is? So the president. Yeah. I mean, beyond all the investigations and scandal and whatever is going on there today, a couple of weeks ago, we heard that the Trump administration was going to copy what state legislators in Ohio and a bunch of other states have already done and defund Planned Parenthood. It's a favorite talking point,
Right.
So we haven't actually seen what it is, because supposedly they've shared it with anti-choice groups and anti-choice legislators, but aren't actually sharing it publicly yet.
Funny how that happens.
Yeah. So, but what we understand it to be is that no one who provides abortion care or refers for abortion care or anything like that would be able to get, or even shares office space with, would be able to get any of the Title X family planning funding, which is kind of the gap service provider for family planning and STD testing and pregnancy testing and a whole host of like reproductive health care for men and women. That goes to, nonprofit clinics for the most part, like Planned Parenthood or Family Planning Associates of Northeast Ohio, or a whole bunch of other kind of nonprofit family planning services in Ohio and across the country. So for people who are underinsured or don't have the coverage or don't have other access to care, they can go to these places and get it on a sliding scale or for free to be able to access the services they need.
Right.
So they'd already made some changes to the program by allowing crisis pregnancy centers and other places to say that they counsel people on like natural family planning and like the rhythm method and all those things and withdrawal and like not real contraception.
Right.
And allowing them to say that they do that and therefore qualify for Title X, which was not something that they were eligible for before. So they've already watered down the program and started stressing abstinence and secondary abstinence and like secondary virginity and all these things in the Title X program, which are all just complete BS.
Secondary virginity?
You may have been sexually active before, but just stop and we'll celebrate your secondary virginity, Gabe.
Right.
Yeah, it's not how this works. Not how any of this works. So
right. What Trump is pushing is it's a domestic gag rule.
Yes.
So this would make it almost impossible for many to access birth control or preventative health care from reproductive health clinics like Planned Parenthood. I'm obviously reading this. Prohibit doctors, nurses, hospitals, and community health care centers across the country from referring their patients for safe and legal abortion. And it would remove the guarantee that patients are getting full and accurate information about their health care from their doctors and providers. So yeah, kind of what you said, it's the abortion providers lose access to do preventive health care, like breast and cervical cancer screenings and HIV tests. The community health providers out there lose the ability to make referrals to abortion providers. So both sides of the family planning, healthcare universe get harmed by this. Reagan had a rule very similar to this, but presidents since then, not even George W. Bush, he had his Mexico City rule, which was awful for international, but he didn't even try a domestic gag rule.
Well, even Reagan's was blocked by the courts. So,
right.
I mean, Reagan tried to institute it, and then it was blocked in the courts for First Amendment reasons. And so I would expect that there would be lawsuits to this as well.
Right.
So, yeah, they've already tried it in Ohio, and Planned Parenthood's already sued, and the courts have already ruled in favor of Planned Parenthood, saying that the state can't say that you can only get money if you don't say the word abortion out loud, or provide abortions or those kind of things. So you can't discriminate giving this pot of money because they do these things with another pot of money. So my guess would be that similar things would happen when lawsuits happen on this front.
Right. Yeah. We've had defunding here in the state of Ohio twice now.
Yes.
The first time Kasich defunded Planned Parenthood, he was going after their access to Title X funds. That was through the state. The health centers were getting federal funding. This is that federal funding.
Yes.
So for Planned Parenthood patients here in the state of Ohio, this would effectively, if fully implemented, this would effectively complete the defunding of Planned Parenthood that Kasich already started.
Yes. And DeWine is fighting to protect in court.
Oh yeah, DeWine loves this.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's really happy about this. So yeah, it's totally disgusting. Trump gag rule.
Yes. Maybe that's why there's a sinkhole in the White House lawn. It wasn't on your agenda, but come on, there's a sinkhole in the White House lawn.
Symbolic and literal sinkhole.
Somebody mentioned, and somebody joked on Twitter that Melania Trump's escape tunnel collapsed.
Somebody, when Trump first got elected, they drew a cartoon of Melania tunneling out of the White House. And so they pulled up this tweet that showed this drawing of her like tunneling out in this big hole in the lawn. Now the hole is there.
Yes. So yes, you should definitely go check out Twitter on the White House sinkhole because it's really hilarious.
Melania, or Melanie, as Trump tweets at her. Did you see that?
No.
He misspelled his wife's name. He tweeted Melanie.
And he doesn't know the difference between HIV and HPV. Like, oh my God, can this guy be more incompetent? I hate to ask that question. Probably. So maybe I should just keep my mouth shut.
Yes. One more quote here from our national office. The Trump administration and the anti-choice extremists he is pandering to with this dangerous rule know that knowledge is power, which is why they are directly attacking a woman's right to know exactly what her full range of options are when it comes to an unintended pregnancy.
Yeah.
Donald Trump. Okay.
Can we talk about something good?
Yeah, let it up.
Stacey Abrams won in Georgia last night.
That's so awesome.
She's amazing. It was really cool because it was two Stacys. That wasn't the cool part, but there were two Stacys running for the Democratic ticket down there. And one was running more moderate and more to like the center to try to get some of those Trump voters that might have gone over. And Stacey Abrams decided that she was going to hold on to her progressive values and stand up for what she believed in and really run a really great progressive campaign for office. And she won, which is fabulous and wonderful. So now she will go up against the Republican who I don't know who it is because I haven't been paying attention to that side this fall. So she is an amazing Black woman who ran just a really strong, great campaign and will be a great candidate this fall.
Right. First Black woman to ever win a party nomination for governor, which is terrific.
Yes.
So this is the year, look and see who's running to represent your district because, we talked about how the map is rigged, but this is the year to bust through.
Yes.
So
even with rigged maps, you can bust through because that's one of my favorite female candidate stories ever is Connie Pillich out of Cincinnati. It was State House District 28. The Republicans actually redrew the district to kick her out of the Ohio House. And then she managed to win by the biggest margin she had ever won by. To give them a big middle finger. So yay. So even with rigged districts, if voters really get out and really get motivated and vote, then you can beat the system.
Right. Okay, so let's quickly talk about upcoming events. June 2nd is a pair of Pride Fests, one in Dayton, one in Cleveland, the Pride and the CLE. This is the second year for that festival.
Yes.
Can you explain what Pride in the CLE is? How is it different than Cleveland Pride?
Well, actually, this year they're combined. So there will not be two. Last year, there were actually two. There was Pride in the CLE and Cleveland Pride. And this year, they have rejoined forces so that there's only one Pride in Cleveland, and it is Pride in the CLE on June 2nd. So it'll be awesome and amazing and a great lineup of speakers and march and all the things that you expect. And they're fabulous.
Nice.
Pride
if you want to volunteer with our organizer, Hannah, she will be up there attending that festival. She needs volunteers. You can find links to all of this stuff in the show notes. Down in Dayton, Kelly, our Central and Southern Ohio volunteer, is going to Dayton. Dayton Pride is a nice it's a smaller Pride Fest. It's a Saturday afternoon gig. She's got a couple shifts there. Needs some people to hang out, have fun at a festival, hand out some stuff, hand out some clipboards, get some petition signatures. Not too hard.
Yeah, actually a really great time. I actually Dayton Pride is one of my favorites because it's really well attended and there's a lot of people. It's actually one of, when I was there at least so many years ago, really one of the most diverse crowds of a Pride festival, and just is a really great, relaxed kind of afternoon in the park. So go hang out in Dayton. It's fabulous.
We're going to be at many Pride festivals throughout the summer. We'll have links to all of those up to volunteer in subsequent weeks. The day after both of these events, June 3rd, Kelly's got a pro-choice AF tie-dye party. So if you want to come to our office here in Columbus, tie-dye some shirts, she's got some NARAL Ohio shirts for sale. You can participate in that. Should be a fun crafternoon.
Yes, we did them in the office last week. Well, most of us did. Gabe was Spoil sport.
Yeah.
But now I have a fabulous tank top, and you can have one too if you come on June 3rd.
Right. And then at the end of June, skipping past many events, we're going to be at ComFest. We've sent out an email to get people to sign up as ComFest volunteers. Many of those shifts are already full, but we still need some folks. So if you want to join us at ComFest, and then the Sunday of that weekend, we're going to head over to Ace of Cups that night to see Lady Parts Justice League's Vagical Mystery Tour. We saw them up in Cleveland last year. They're back in Ohio, but this time they're finally come to my town.
Yay!
So that should be a hilarious end to ComFest weekend. So link to volunteer with us at ComFest in the show notes, and then join us on June 24th at Ace of Cups.
Yay!
Cool.
All right.
Okay.
That's it.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.